I think we're gonna
Perfect.
we've turned on. We're starting the live recording. We're welcoming everybody, so thank you. We have lots of people signing in. I'm very excited to see so many people today. And just a little information on who I am. So I'm Brett Furman. I'm a real estate broker. This is my coming on my 40th year as a real estate broker, which is a long time. I'm involved in all different facets of real estate, but my super specialty is I focus on senior housing. Having done this so long, many of my clients I'm on generation three, so it was a natural progression. So the ABCs of senior housing it came as a result of that, and it's just to give back. We don't really sell anything during this hour. We'll be giving you a lot of information that hopefully can help you. I've written a couple of books. I'm actually on my third one right now, which will be coming out soon. I do a lot of speaking around the country, a lot of writing. I've been in all kinds of different press sources. And what I really like about my guest today, Jeff, and it's something I've noticed is you also share the Inman contribution, which is a wonderful real estate specific publication. I saw that. I was very impressed, but more impressed here with this Wealth Agent Institute. Could you tell me a little bit about that, Jeff, and how you're a part of that? And
Yes,
welcome,
please.
by the way, and welcome yourself too.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Thanks for being on here. I'm grateful because you're pretty well known in the real platform here. So I'm privileged to be on here. So thank you very much. Was first licensed in 1979. I come from a real estate family. Okay, went off to college. I always wanted to be a stockbroker, so I became a stockbroker after college. And I watched how people invest in the stock market. Now you have to. This is 1980s at this point, mid 1980s, before the bull market came in. And I always thought when I would watch Lou Kaiser on TV on PBS,
I've
and
Channel 12, my favorite show. I love that
exactly,
show.
exactly. So I was always so impressed with all these people. But then when I got into the business, I realized that, wait a second, the real estate that my father bought was pretty simple. He put a small amount down on a large amount of real estate, let the tenants pay it off, and could live off that in retirement. And what I did was I went back and I studied the real estate market and I studied the stock market going back to 1900. And what the Wealth Agent Institute does is teaches realtors across the country, mortgage brokers, property managers, how to talk to clients and compare and contrast real estate investing to stock investing to show them essentially how to retire with less money invested. So it's a way to differentiate themselves out in the marketplace as true professionals. It's really for people like you, the top agents out there that really know what they're doing, can really help their clients and want to help them generationally, maybe learn the information from themselves, give it to their children or grandchildren, help them really understand buying the first house as a foundation of their financial future. And if they start buying a few properties now, they're going to wake up one day as multi millionaires, and it'll be shocking how easy it is. So
I
that's
love it. I
that's what
think
I
that's
do.
an
That's what I
awesome.
do. That's my passion, and I'm
Okay. And I
65
can
years
feel
old.
it
Yeah,
talking.
my
We had a
dad's
chance to speak.
95.
We had a
So
chance
I
to
have a lot
speak.
of fight in me. So this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life.
Okay,
So I'm
wonderful.
thrilled to
Well,
be on here helping your clients and you.
yeah, and we did have a chance to speak earlier in the week, and I enjoyed hearing about more about your background and how you help people, which is really very admirable. The purpose of today really is to kind of answer that question that we get a lot, and that is all the mistakes that retirees make with, real estate and how can they fix those? What things should they be doing and what should they not be doing? And I'm hoping we spend an hour and those on the call, we got some more people signing in, so welcome everybody. You didn't miss a lot, so we're just getting into the presentation. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our guest to kind of talk about some of is your home working for you in retirement, and what kinds of things should our guests be doing maybe differently than they're doing now, Jeff?
Well, I'm going to, in my presentation that you have coming up, we're going to be talking about thinking about, I'm going to be comparing and contrasting two different strategies where stock investors and paper asset investors really think of this big pool of money, this pile of
Okay.
money, okay? And then in retirement, they try to pull from it. And if they pull from it too much too early or the market goes down, then they're in a situation where they may outlive their money. Okay. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be throwing out some ideas, and I want them to be have a perspective, a bigger perspective, that they're stock investors, to maybe take some chips off the table and think of real estate as maybe the sort of like the bonds or the cash in their account to minimize a major correction. Because we're going to show where the stock market was since 1900, and we're going to show the good periods and the bad periods, good periods and bad periods. And I call it sort of the seesaw effect, where you have a good stock market, then you have a bad stock market. And those bad stock markets cause people to outlive their money. So we were talking earlier, and this is a real concern that I want to sort of help people with, and you certainly want to help your clients.
And that's interesting because I think those on the call, we have some more people signing on, so welcome. Would you say that most of the people on the call have some type of a stock portfolio? And I guess they're trying to figure out, will they outlive their money? What's going to happen?
Well, great thing. And we talked about this a little bit before, because at the end, I'm going to show you 11 different generations of people from
Okay.
1900, 1910, 1920, and what happened to them if they were given $1 million and tried to withdraw money out of their account. Unfortunately, most of them did outlive their money if they lived too long. So we're going to be talking about a lot of different things. And if you have listeners that have questions, have them send questions to you and shoot that email to me, and we can talk about it.
Okay, wonderful. I really appreciate that. Let me move on to the next one. So talk to us a little bit about the cost of waiting and when should somebody on this call be considering making a plan? When, because this whole ABCs of senior housing, Jeff, we focus on proactive versus reactive. And in the planning world, I guess that's probably hits a nerve with you to, plan well in advance. Is that pretty much accurate in your world?
Yeah, the sooner you get started and the sooner you build a plan, the better off you are. But you can always be tweaking that plan as you go. Because right now, the market has been doing very well, just like similar to the markets of in the 1920s, in 1950 to 1965, in 1983 to 2000. So we're looking at those different bull markets, and what happens after those bull markets is a bear market. So when somebody's planning on living on potential growth of a stock portfolio, if they're pulling money out of their stock plan because the stock plan is going up, they're in a situation where they really have to give thoughtful consideration and maybe looking at their account and trying to figure out what is a better way to do it, where just in case if the market goes flat or is in a declining market or does not provide the returns they need to be able to live off the stock portfolio. So
Okay.
great question. Great
Okay.
question. So yeah, the answer in short, always be mindful, always be trying to tweak it.
And how about the concept of downsizing versus, um, I call it aging in place. Some people call it staying put. How would someone go about evaluating that differential?
That, over the years, when I was a VP at Charles Schwab in 2007 to
Oh,
2010
okay.
on the high net worth people, and we had a number of people come in, and it's funny, it really depends on their feeling. Whether they should downsize or whether it should age in place. It really also depends on their financial situation. And this gets back to the question you asked last time. What should, how should people, should they start early? Yes, start early, but always be looking at it based on the current environment. So this is really more of a personal thing. My
Personal.
dad's
Okay.
95. My dad's 95. He
That's
never
phenomenal.
planned. Yeah, it's amazing. And he never planned on living this long. So he went through most of what he has. So he's in a situation where we have to sort of stay in place. We're looking for him as an example to basically the upstairs turn the dining room area or the family living room into sort of a bedroom with a walk-in shower kind of thing, or wheelchair shower thing. So it really depends on your situation, depends on your finances, and depends on your situation. Like my mother-in-law, real quickly, her plan when we were looking at it was to sell a house. She had two houses and sell one every 5 or 6 years. And then she wanted to stay in the home and then live in, maybe do a reverse mortgage because they've gotten a lot better, and live in place. But other people want to downsize their house because then they're pulling a chunk of money out, and it really depends once again on the individual situation.
I think you mentioned something just to call attention to those on the call. And again, we got some more people signing in, so welcome. Um, what I want you mentioned that idea of the reverse mortgage. What I wanted to let people know on the call is in the ABCs of senior housing, we've this is our 22nd um, webinar that we've done. We did one specific to reverse mortgages. So if you wanted to take a listen to that, it's just, if you go to my website, I'll put it up on the screen later in the presentation. You can access that and learn whether it even makes sense for you or not. But again, what Jeff said, they've gotten much, much better. And there's some definite economic reasons for certain people to utilize the strategy of a reverse mortgage. Just
Well
trying to think
said.
of it.
Well said. And basically things get better and people get more savvy on what works and what doesn't work. It's a financial planning tool. So, and it gets back to what you want to do with your finances. And sometimes people do wait too long in their home, and then they're out of capital, and then it gets more complicated. And they should have downsized. You know what I mean? So it's really depends on the individual.
Okay. So how about let's talk a little bit about the stress because we know everyone on the call, there's tons of stress in this because it's something that you haven't gone through. There's a lot of things to figure out what makes better sense for you. Should you age in place? Should you consider going to a senior housing community? We know analytically that most people will age in place because of the costs of going to senior housing. We know that there's shortages in our market, especially in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware. We have some clients that are on waiting lists, Jeff. I just had one that moved into a community that was on a list for 8 years. So we know that it's not always easy to get in. Certainly, the smaller units you can get in. The one bedrooms are usually much more available. If you're looking for something larger, there's a demand. But talk to us about some of the stress and what you recommend to kind of alleviate all that.
Well, you're actually more of an authority on this than I am, okay? Much more than of an authority. So I can just touch a little bit on this.
Okay.
I see it's difficult for me to see, and I'm just going to do a personal situation, my aunt and uncle, how they moved into a home probably too soon and it wiped them out, okay? They had to buy in and do the buy-in and all the different things,
And it's
and that's
not
where,
inexpensive. That's a
yeah, yeah,
big
yeah, it's a
amount
big
of
hit.
funds
So,
needed.
so I personally think, based on conversations I had with you beforehand, that you would probably be better suited to talk to your clients on something along those lines. It's not as much of a specialty for me,
Got it.
just to keep it real.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's perfectly okay. But one of the things you mentioned before about we talked about aging in place. I'm just trying to advance my screen. Is kind of this concept of the excuse me of the income versus asset drawdown and how that comes into the planning process. Could you
Oh,
highlight that for our
yes.
for those on the
This is
call?
totally in my wheelhouse. So now
Okay,
we're
I
talking
thought
about
so.
this is where I love.
I
Okay.
thought so.
Okay. Um, Basically, there's two ways of retirement planning. Okay,
Okay,
with real estate, I'm going to say two options in real estate. A lot of people buy real estate and then plan on, since you can put a small amount down, you retire with less money invested with real estate. You buy the real estate and then you systematically buy it over a period of time, and then in retirement you systematically sell it off. Okay, it's called
okay,
laddering. You think of a ladder, okay? You buy,
fine.
and then you
Okay,
sell. So then in retirement, you might be selling every 6 years. So you have about 25 years, roughly, of creating cash flow to live, okay? Preferably, you'd want to buy enough real estate to be able to live off the income and leave a large estate, but most people can't, okay? So that's investing for income. And we're going to get into that, and they're going to love this stuff.
okay,
Now, asset drawdown. Now, since give you an example. The Dow, the S&P right now is paying, if you have an index fund, no management, basically, it's paying about 1%. So if,
Wow,
yeah, right.
not
So
very much.
not very much at
I
all.
mean, my eggs are rising more than 1%, I think, a year
So
or a month.
that's the difference. So when you're in a market like right now, everybody, all the boats are rising. Real estate's going up, stocks are
Yeah,
going up, but after every good market, there's a bad market, and they usually last
absolutely.
about 10 to 20 years, if you look historically, and we're going to go over that. So when people are living on their assets, okay, they're drawing down their assets like the stock market. The stock market has to be going up a lot, be able to cover the withdrawals. And when it's flat or declining or not going up that much, they are pillaging principal. They are selling off their assets, liquidating their assets. So it's a very different philosophy because most people think that the stock market will provide this high return when in fact it doesn't. And we're going to touch on that in the future in this
And
video.
something you mentioned earlier in the call about we were talking about aging in place, and I think this is a great segue for everyone on the call and those who are going to listen after today's workshop. Is that I operate this home concierge service, and this is basically it's a free service. And Jeff, we talked about this a little bit earlier in the week about how I have people been doing this for 40 years, so.
Right.
I have a lot of people that are going to choose to age in place and stay in their home, and that's perfectly fine. And they might need, you talked about that relative that had a need for putting a special shower in, or just help, cleaning the windows or painting or whatever your category. We have painters and people that can fix your heating and air conditioning and handymen. That's probably the number one call we get. And we get a ton of calls, and it's a free service we operate. It's for everyone on the call. If there's something you need, and you don't have somebody that you like, we'll happily refer these people. We don't benefit economically from any of these people. The concept, though, is we want to add lots of value to our customers and clients, and then we'll follow up. If we send you to a handyman, Jeff, and I'm going to call and ask how he did. Did he come on time? Was his billing okay? Were you satisfied with the work? Because as quickly as we add people to our list, we'll also take them off if they're not living up to,
That's
a
great.
certain level.
That's great.
So
That's
if
a big
you
deal. That's a big deal.
and it's very helpful. And I have people that say they're never going to move, and that's okay. And we're happy to help them with whatever we can for whatever they need to get done for their house.
That's perfect.
So
That's a
we're
big
going to
deal.
move ahead a little bit and talk a little bit about wealth in retirement. How do we create that? And what would happen if you needed to move tomorrow? What do you recommend? Something happens, something changes, health changes, whatever.
Well, what I recommend, they call you.
Okay, thank
That's
you.
my simple recommendation.
Okay.
Have them call you. When it comes to something like this, don't react too quickly. You have to let if something really life-changing, a spouse passes away or whatever, you have to just let the dust settle and be contemplative about it.
Okay.
But
And
this is in your.
what I'm gonna do now is I want to just stop sharing for a second. I'm gonna bring up I have a slide deck that I know we were talking about earlier in the week, and I'd like to share that one as well so you can get a sense of a little different perspective of what's happening in the stock market, things like that. So I apologize. I'm just going to bring that up.
While you're doing that, I'm going to
Okay, please.
go over it with
Yeah.
everybody. As a financial planner and associate real estate broker, I like to give people a very different perspective of real estate investing and stock investing, not only when they're planning for retirement, but when they're in retirement. And this touches on the philosophy of real estate investors live on the income, plan to live on income from their investments whenever possible. And stock investors, their plan as a certified financial planner, and this is what I was taught over 30 years ago, that essentially put your money in the stock market, then you try to live on it in retirement. Hopefully, you don't outlive your money when you need it the most. And then I'm going to be showing a different perspective on real estate investing when planning for retirement versus stock investing. I call it, once again, peace of mind planning or pizza pie planning. And this is where you really just look at your income, because it's really, retirement really is about income. Because if you can cover your bills and have a little extra there each and every month, that is really a wonderful retirement based on your maintaining your standard of living and quality of life. So that's sort of the game plan for what I want to cover. So think of that as the three pillars of what do I want to accomplish with my slideshow. Okay.
Can you see that, the new
Yep.
slideshow,
I
Jeff?
can see it there. Perfect.
Okay.
Build wealth through real estate. And I want to thank everybody for me. I have a lot of gratitude for me being able to potentially maybe shift some of your thinking. Because this isn't just for you, this webinar. This is for maybe your children and grandchildren, your family, your friends, your neighbors, to have you have a different perspective, to share this different perspective with other people. And then if they want to talk further, call Brett. So
Okay.
what I
Thank
want to
you.
do, what I want to do is I want you to just think about the way it was. Okay, a generation or so ago, really my father's generation. He's now 95 for the most part, and people in their 70s and 80s, late 70s and 80s, they were fortunate enough to have a pension, most of them, and
Huh.
they would have a pension and Social Security, and you only needed a small bit of savings. And on the next slide, we show what the reality is of where we are today. So today, there's a big gap, and it's, instead of a smiley face there, it should be a frown. Okay,
Yeah.
so
Understood.
you know it's now Social Security and personal savings. So now, with Social Security, and your personal savings to retire, there's a gap for most people, and it's a worrisome gap because people are living longer, medical care is better. My dad never dreamt to be 95, and if he's 95 in September, he has a good chance to live to 97 or 98. So it's really wild how this works. And here we go. And this is what the perfect. And this is what it's all about: longevity risk. So when somebody reaches eight, let's go down to 95 for a male. If you're at 95 here years old on the age for a male, he has a good chance to live to 98.
Phew, that's
So
crazy.
so when people hit a marker, like if they live to 70, 75, 80, and the tough part is, and this is my passion after being in the financial service industry and seeing women come in and they have no money. And they may live another 10, 15 years in retirement, and they have to, figure it out. It's a harsh reality because women live longer than men, which
You know what
brings me
else you're
to
missing from this, Jeff? You forget
what's
about
that?
the AI impact for living longer. Think about all the potential cures and things that are going to be created where I think it could really rise significantly.
They're talking about that. They're talking about that. Whether the quality of life is higher or not, but they're
Good,
going to
good
live
point.
longer. Right.
Good point.
Right.
Good point.
Yep. Well done. So let's talk about this. What do retirees fear the most? Do they fear dying or outliving their money? Drum roll. Almost two-thirds fear outliving their money. I mean, this is real.
I hear
This is
this
a
all the
real
time.
concern. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm here on a Saturday morning trying to reach out to your friends and family and your clients and all the people that are in your sphere,
Yeah.
because this could be a Doppler, this could be a Doppler effect where the waves go out, and
Uh,
you can change a lot of lives for people. So let's bring it down to the next slide,
okay.
because I want people to take a look at this. Now, I have a PDF. If your clients want this, ask
We'll
me for
share
the,
it.
yep, ask me for the PDF, put it online, because
Okay.
and
We'll absolutely do that.
okay. Um, I want people to be thinking about, and I'm going to show you the problem, and I'm going to give you the solution. Okay, so when you see this problem, don't let it rattle your cage too much. Okay, because if somebody has, and I'm going to keep the math simple, if somebody has $500,000,
Okay.
okay, and their dedicated retirement savings, and they need $100,000 to live. Okay. A is the $500,000. B is the $100,000. If you divide $500,000 by 100,000, you get five. And the five would be they have about 5 years of retirement. Now, no financial planner
This
really,
is
really tell people the reality of their situation, because they want to manage their money. They want them to bring more funds to them. They want to talk, oh, we went up 20% this year, but what's it really matter? if you're not going to be able to retire, especially retire the way you want and when you want. So when you see this information, I'm going to be showing you a solution on how
Okay.
to retire. So here's the problem. Most people will not be able to retire with the income that they want, the way they want. So we have to give them a way to retire with less money invested. And we're going to show, you and I are going to show them how to do that.
Okay.
Okay. So let's go to the next slide. Okay. So this is a slide showing somebody that's $800,000. They want to pull 80,000, 10% out of their portfolio a year. So their portfolio will last approximately 10 years. Now, people say, well, wait a second, how's that possible if I'm getting interest at 5%? It's the liquidation rate. If you're pulling out 10%, even especially in a stock portfolio and it's flat or declining or not
Okay.
going up that much, you're in big trouble. So this gets back to your question, and I really loved it about investing for income versus investing for growth. So this is a wake up call. I just want to give your viewers a little bit of a wake up call. Okay. And
Well,
then
we
we're going to
like
go
that. We like anything to a wake up call is good.
good. And then
And
we're going to
that
give a
goes back to
solution.
my reactive versus proactive. The entire workshop set up for not being reactive. Let's be proactive.
Well done. Well done. So we're going to buzz through some of these next ones here. I'm a certified financial planner. I'm a accredited wealth management advisor. That's for high net worth people. I got that with Charles Schwab. And that's my deal. So I'm going to skip through that. Okay, here's something that I think is so important, so important. These are the values, real estate increases on the right hand side, compound increases in yellow historically by decade. Okay, when you look at that, that does not just jump out at you on a page. It does not, like, you don't think, oh my God, a 4% return, a 4% return, a 6%, a 5%, a 10%, almost 11, a 4%, a 5%, almost a 10%. This is amazing because when you think of increases on a decade basis across the United States as a whole, taking 50 states and just dividing the number, this is an amazing thing when you add strategic leverage that we're going to talk about in the future. Let's go
Okay.
jump to the next one. Now, I want you to have a different perspective here. I want you to say, I want you to think back. Do you remember when you bought your first house?
I
What is
do.
that? Yes.
And my interest rate, I was buying things at 18%.
Yeah, in the early 80s.
So
That's why I went
I've been
off to
doing this a long
college.
time. So that just shows you. Yeah. So people
Yeah.
always question and say, well, hey, right now their rates are 6%, but it had been 4, but I still think it's still so cheap compared to what it's been. It's all
Listen,
relative.
amen.
Yeah.
Amen. So we'll go to the next slide. But think about what that house is now. What is
Work
that
today.
house worth today? Okay. Think about that house in the 1980s, what that was selling for. We'll go to the next slide because I want them to be thinking about this. You are already a real estate investor. Your children, your grandchildren, your relatives, all your relatives that bought a house in the last 40 years, they're real estate investors already, or 50 years or 60 years. They're real estate investors already. So why not think about this? Why not give it some real
Thought.
thought? I'm going to have you take you to the next one here. So now we're going to talk about taking control of your retirement. Okay, here, drum roll. Now, this is an example of a property in my local market. Okay, matter of fact, we own it. It's just say for math purposes, it's a $400,000 property. I'm trying to keep
Okay.
the math simple. Makes it easier for me. And the net rental income after taxes, insurance, property management, and a few fix up is about 20,000 of gross rental
Okay.
income. Go to the next slide here. So now we have some
This is
peace
the
of mind
pizza.
planning.
You're
There's a
making me
pizza.
hungry
Okay.
already, but go
Yeah.
ahead.
Okay. It's early in the morning, but what do you do? So here we go. We recommend making retirement planning easier by thinking of different sources of income as slices of a pizza pie. So here we go. Next slide, baby. Okay. Now, I made the math simple for me. Okay.
Okay.
You could put this in and slice the pizza pie however you want
You
it, but
want to.
we just made it where we have 8 slices and each slice is 20 grand. Okay. So let's assume this household needs 180,000, 160,000 to maintain their purchasing power. And they have income from other sources. Now, this is income. This is chunks of money, annual income from Social Security, maybe a pension, a trust, royalties, whatever. Well done. So each slice of the pie represents
20.
20 grand. So you have already half your slice covered. So what do we do with the next part? I recommend income producing real estate. And how many properties, if the average property is providing $20,000 of income and you need 80, how many properties would we need? Well, we need 4 properties.
4.
Now, a best practice here, whenever possible, is to purchase extra real estate to help fund a dedicated reserves account. And I can spend hours on a dedicated reserves account, and that's just extra money going into an account in retirement. So you schedule for roofs and the
Capital
HVACs and
improvements,
capital
things like
improvements.
that.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So what if, you don't have the resources to have um, $80,000 of net rental income or more from your rentals, okay? And let's say you have 60,000 or even less,
Okay.
but let's just say 60 grand. Well, now you have some decisions to make. Go ahead to the next slide. What your options are is basically say they can retire now with less income, okay? Now, most financial planners say, oh, you'll only need 80% of your current quality, current income, maybe 70%, maybe not. I don't believe that because I can get into a multitude of reasons, but I personally don't believe that based on expenses and inflation and reality. Now, so you can retire now, you can delay retirement. Now, here's my
Okay.
favorite, okay? Here's my favorite, what saved my dad, okay? When he retired, number three, he semi-retired. Okay, so that meant he stayed in the business, kind of like we were talking about before. Now
Uh,
you have legacy people. I mean, you have the children and the grandchildren that you're helping. So and that's what he ended up doing. So he was more part-time, a hobby job selling real estate. So if it was me, if I wasn't in real estate, I might be a starter at a golf course in the summertime or whatever in my 80s or whatever, just to keep myself out there. But when by doing something like that, you are stalling or you're putting off pulling money out of your account to live. So you're delaying that. So the longer you delay something like that with a hobby job or something, whether it's 20 grand or 40 grand or 30 grand or whatever, it keeps your sort of your pool of money in better shape as you go. So I'm going to go back to it if you can.
Sorry,
So
I
this is
apologize.
no worries, no worries. Your slides are working perfect. This is the strategy I'd like you to think about, okay? Because Brett, this gets back to when you were talking about living on your savings versus living on the income from your
Okay.
savings, okay? So when somebody sits down and says, okay, how, and they start to look at their financial plan as slices of a pizza pie. What are they doing? Right. Because if they have their money in the stock market, and even if they have it managed by some mutual fund manager and maybe a private there, we had private client where Schwab would pay to have a certified financial planner go over their portfolio, and we'd have all the asset allocation and all the bonds and all the fun stuff there. But the reality was when you went from in 2007 to 2010 while I was there, when you're living on your savings and then you have the market go down, you are in sort of a death spiral. Okay. And we're going to talk about that later, but you're in big trouble when the market starts going flat or going declining or
Negative.
provides low return. So this is a philosophy to think about. So, and you own rental properties. We talked about that. You are savvy, very savvy, and you can be guiding these people on some of this stuff because if somebody has a portfolio of mostly stocks, we always recommend diversification, and that would be bonds and bond funds and different things, a 60-40 allocation, 50-50, 40-60. And this is where you might try to move some of those bond assets into real estate to have, when the market corrects, to have more stability. Now, we just did a fix and flip, Brett. I wrote a book on 10 years ago on how to do fix and flips and buy real estate in your IRA. Okay. And you can counsel some people on that because it's easier than people think to be able to buy real estate in their IRA and start to live off the income in their IRA. So we can do a talk in the future on that for your clients because that is a pool of money that is getting neglected and people are buying CDs and different things and they're just with it, and I could spend another talk on inflation, on the actual value of their portfolio decreasing in value each year.
And
So,
Jeff, my secret sauce is I've done all these things personally. So like sometimes you talk to like a real estate professional and ask them a question about, do you know, have you ever done a 1031? And they look at you, they have no
right.
clue. Or a self-directed IRA. Or what kind of investments have you done in real estate? Well, I've done all that. That's how I started. I started as a broker. I was in a money fund. And when I was working 40 years ago, I started buying real estate. So that's kind of my cycle and how I can help people is I've been through all these personally.
Well, people on this call, like I'm in real, okay? I'm a broker in real, and I hear about your name and what you do and your reputation, your customer service. You're like an icon, okay? So
Yeah.
that's why I wanted to do this thing on a Saturday morning because I just know I have a reverence for you. So your clients don't know how deep that well is that you have. So I hope that you have different guests on from mutual fund companies that, or excuse me, from self-directed IRA companies to have your people think about that because they can get a mortgage on a property in an IRA and they can buy real estate cash in an IRA and live off the income from their property and get the appreciation in the market and diversify their account. And you're the guy to have them talk to because you live
Yes. And I've
a
done it and have
1031
one going
exchange.
right now. I have two clients right now. We're in the middle of 1031 exchanges where they're selling real estate to acquire some other real estate and uh, they won't have to worry about any federal income tax
Right.
on the sale. And the other thing, Jeff, one of my ABCs of senior housing webinars, it's my most listened to um, webinar was about excluding up to
Yeah.
$500,000 on the sale of a primary residence and how to use that strategy, which is something I also use personally. I've moved, my
Right.
wife will probably kill me, but I've moved, I'm on my fourth move, and every 2 years you can take a primary residence, take your
Outstanding.
gain, and then you don't pay
Right.
tax. You need a very cooperative spouse to do that, though. So I will tell the callers that.
Yeah, yeah, and but then also with the 1031 exchanges, people don't know the value of that. Like that, like I did a I'm working on something for the wealth agents about talking. People don't understand when you have a portfolio outside of a qualified account, how you get pillaged on taxes on your
It's
growth.
horrible.
So it's like, when you talk about taxes earned growth versus tax deferred growth or tax free growth, but right, we still have a stepped up basis on capital
Yes.
gains. So when you defer, and then do a 1031, and then you have a stepped up basis on that, which you can talk to your clients at length on, they should be calling you and saying, hey, Brett, tell me about this, tell me about that. So they're in a fortunate situation.
We've also used the federal exclusion rule for someone recently that had the passing of a spouse and they were thinking about selling a house, and we came up with timing so that they could do that and still save $500,000. Had they sold it too soon, that would have cost them $250,000 of mistake by just a little timing differential.
Taxable
Yeah.
gain on
Yeah.
250,000. I'm not even aware of that. So I
Yeah.
would like to talk to you after this
Yeah.
on
I'd
that.
love to
So
do a
thank you
show on
very
that
much.
one. That's my
That's
favorite
a
topic,
nuance
actually.
that I would have missed.
Yeah.
So what I want to do now, I want to jump into the stock market. Okay.
Okay.
And I'm going to keep this slide up because I want them to see
Okay.
this. This is all the social validation from people that really want you to invest in the stock market. Okay.
Okay.
These are the returns that people really kind of expect. Go to the next slide here because I wanted you to see the different ones. You saw the Vanguard and last one. Um, Go back to that last one if you
Oh,
could.
sorry.
Sorry about
Oh, the
that.
Vanguard. Where's the Vanguard?
Yeah, this
Vanguard
one,
right
this one's
here. Vanguard
perfect, perfect.
Advisors
So
here.
you have Vanguard and you have Fidelity talking to people since 1929. Now, they use what's called an average annual return. Now, it sounds really smart. It sounds like, oh, an average annual return. And I forgot to put this slide in, so we're gonna just talk about it.
That's
Okay.
fine.
If somebody has a stock account and it goes from $100,000 to $200,000, that's
Okay.
100% increase. Okay.
Okay.
In year one, you had 100% increase. So now in year two, it goes from $100,000, excuse me, it goes from $200,000
Thousand.
back
Two.
down to 100. That was a 50% decrease.
Decline.
Right. So now you started with 100,000 and you ended with 100,000. What was your return? And it's not a quick question. You started with 100,000, went up to 200,000 and came back to 100. You had no return on your money. Okay.
Zero.
Now we're not going to call it fees or management fees or anything. But the way Wall Street does it, they use an average annualized return to make people think that they did
Think.
well, right? So they took that 100% plus a negative 50% and divided by 2 years. So if you have 100%, a plus 100 minus 50, you have 50 left over divided by 2 years. So that would be an average annualized return of 25%.
But that's
Now,
not accurate.
right. This is how they could distort the returns over the last 80 years. Then they average 100% of the dividend income. They throw that in there. That would be like us saying, okay, yeah, we have a rental property, but let's forget taxes and insurance and these
All the
different things.
expenses.
We're going to say, oh yeah, you had 30,000, 35,000 in rent. You have the increase of 6% during the year and you have 9% gross income. Your average return is 15%. Well, we know that's not true. That's what they do to distort it. I'm going to be showing people the real returns here. So,
Okay.
so let's talk about the market right here. This is the market. This is what's going to be happening sometime in the near future. I don't want to use the word crash. I want to use the word correction or
Okay.
typical market trend. After every good market, there's a bad market. Okay.
Okay.
Let's jump to the next slide. Okay. I could spend a day on this, but we
Okay.
won't. Okay. I want you to see in red the actual returns for different decades. Okay, so you have, the first 20 years. Then you had after during the Great Depression, 1930s and 1940s, minus 5%, 3%. Then you had the 1950s, 13%, a good period. Then you had the 1960s and 70s, a bad flat stock market period. Now let's pause. After World War II, and the baby boomers, you really had the market going up from the late 1940s to the 1965. But then you had a flat period for 15 years. Okay. Then you had the good market from 1983 to 2000. Then you had the flat market from 2000, the end of 1990s to 2011. Now we have the good stock market. What's next? The seesaw effect is you have a before and after every good stock market is a bad stock market. And this is just history. And the bad stock market periods are usually between 20 to 11 years. Okay.
Okay.
So this is why we go to the next slide. And people are always shocked at this next slide. If you take the beginning of a period that where the stock market closed in 1900, 1910, 1920, 1930, and where it ended up in 1925, 1930, 1945, you can calculate the actual compound return for that 25-year period. They can't deny it because you figured out where the stock market started and where it ended, and you can compute what the returns were. And believe it or not, the vast majority of time, the stock market provides returns in 7 out of 11 periods of less than 5.5%. This destroys people financially. This destroys because if they're living on a portfolio, there's something called sequence of return. If you have a bad market in the beginning and you start decline, your account declines. We're going to show how using this data, how people outlived their money if they were given $1 million and they just withdrew $50,000 in the first year and then increased it for inflation. So when you look at this, you may see perfect. You may see these 7 periods, and if you go to there's only one good period here, 1980s to 2000, you're right, to 2005, that had a return of more than 10%. Really had a more of a return than 7.75%. So the vast majority of periods, and people don't even know this because of the bad stock market periods after good stock market periods. It's rare to have the stock market provide good returns. And in the last 25 years, people are like, oh, yeah, my account's doing so well since 2009. But because of the market doing so poorly before that, that's why their compound return,
Hmm.
a compound interest, is so low.
Okay.
So let's go to the next slide. Now I
Oh,
want to talk about leverage, the magic of leverage. You have no leverage versus strategic leverage. This is what makes real estate investing one of the multitude of things, tax advantage and all the different things, tenants, high rental income, just a number of things that make real estate investing make sense. Okay. This is the difficulty for stock investors. Okay. Stock investors cannot safely leverage a stock portfolio or a stock account. The increase is only on the amount of their investment, how much they control. So if they start out with $100,000, it's only controlling $100,000. That's why when it goes up 7%, a compound rate for 25 years on 100,000 isn't that great, or a 7.75% or 8% isn't that great. Now, a 10.5% in the 1980s or more was a good return. But when you're going 5%, you're not even covering inflation for the most part. So your money
it's
basically
not
sat.
enough.
Like people don't know the money that people first invested in the stock market in 2000 only went up 5.5% in 25 years if they got 100% of the return of the market. Well, inflation, that period, if you actually study
It's
inflation,
greater
the actual
or
inflation,
negative.
right, not what the government posts, but the actual inflation rate, their money basically did not increase. The real purchasing power didn't increase in 25 years. So I know I'm throwing a lot at everybody, but I want them to really think about this because they have a resource in you, Brett, to be able to look at their stuff and talk to them, and you can collaborate with me, and then collaborate with them.
Love to.
Okay. So here is the stock market from 2000 to 2025 for the Dow. Okay. And it looks like a rocket ship taking off since 2009, March of 2009, and everybody's excited. But because of the down market, where the market went from 2000 to 2011, you had it first go down for in 2023. Then it went up and fighting in
Oh,
2007.
here,
Then it
yeah.
went down 50 some percent March of 2009, came up, went back
Okay.
down. For 11 years, the stock market was flat. That was devastating for anybody that was saving for retirement because it made their real compound return so low for this period of time. So think about that because now we're going to compare it to real estate. Now, I want to have it where we're comparing $100,000 as a down payment on four different down payment amounts. Okay.
Okay.
So you have leverage amounts of 20% down, 5-1, 25% down, 4-1, 33% down, 3-1, and 20 and 50-1, 2-1 leverage. So let me show you how real estate investors did this compared to stock investors for this last 25 years on the next slide.
Good slide, actually. I like this one a lot. This really
Yeah,
says exactly what's happening.
Isn't it amazing? And real estate only increased at a compound rate of a little over 5%. But when
Okay.
you use leverage and their starting point's 500,000 going up to 1.7, or 400,000 going up to 1.4, or 300,000 going up to $1 to $1 million. And if they put 2-1, $200,000 going up to 670,000. But that's not the big story. The big story is if
Yeah.
the net rental income's 5% or 6%, how much income they're getting. Because let's go up to the one in blue, the 4-1 at 1.4 million. Go ahead and jump up there with the pointer.
This one right
Yep.
here.
Yep. Go to stick it at 1.4 million. Yes. Now, if the net rental income is 5%, think
Okay.
about this. 5% on 1.4 million, what is that? That is $70,000 of net rental income
Income.
coming in from an initial investment of 100,000. Of course, you have repairs and fix up on a portfolio.
Yeah.
You have your dedicated reserves account to cover that, and it's part of a real estate based retirement plan. But if we go down to the stock account and just say that stock account was with added things, it's the 373, and then you put more money into it, equal to maybe a stock invest or real estate investor, and say it was $500,000 and it's yielding 1%, you only have 5 grand coming out of that account. So now you are forced as a stock investor to live on your savings. So nobody tells that part of the story. So when you're asking me what is the Wealth Agent Institute, my passion is reaching out to people like you that are players in a market that can reach out to their clients and really have a profound impact on their children and grandchildren and their friends and family, if they don't want to change the way they're investing now, to have them give thoughtful consideration to maybe have a different retirement plan. Okay. Next one. That is a powerful slide. So now I'm going to even expand on it. So at a 4% inflation rate on a $500,000 real estate portfolio, it should increase at 4.5% inflation to about 1.5 million. Okay. And usually be paid off. Now the next slide compares and contrasts a little bit. Look at that. That is a 10%. If Wall Street tells people that the stock market usually averages around 10%.
Okay.
So that's where, if somebody invested $100,000 in the stock market at 10% compound rate, it should be really worth about $1.1 million as a stock investor. Now, if it was truthful, and that's actually what happened to stock investors, they're doing pretty well. I mean, they're
Okay.
doing pretty well on that $100,000 invested. Now, let me show you the reality on the next slide. Okay. This is where, on the right-hand side is the periods of 1900, the 25-year periods, 1910, 1920, 1930, 1940, going up for each decade to 2000. So this in red on the bottom is where stock investors actually ended up if they received 100% of the actual returns of the stock market, where I can explain why that's never the case.
Okay.
So when you're looking at, jump back to it
Sorry.
a little bit. Sorry
Sorry, I
about
apologize.
that.
Okay.
Um, if you look at that, I want you to see how just where stock and real estate investors start, their starting point, because of leverage, okay, their starting point is so much higher that
Are you
it's sort of like climbing up a mountain. They're already halfway up Mount Everest, okay, as a real estate investor, and the stock investors are at the summit trying to figure out how to get to the halfway up the hill.
it's a leverage.
It's
It's all the
because of
leverage
leverage.
differential.
And you asked me, why am I, with the Wealth Agent Institute? I want to reach out to realtors
To
across the
explain
country
this.
to have them be able to explain this to their clients, as a realtor, to blow their socks off and have people really think, wait a second, if real estate for the last 125 plus years has outperformed the stock market handedly, and they can retire with less money invested and live off the income, why
Right.
are they putting it in the stock market? So that's my preaching here. Let's go to the next one.
The fake
So
income.
fake income. When they're advised to live off a stock portfolio, they're living off potential income because the dividend income after management fees is non-existent half the time or very little. They're forced to live off the income. So this is what happens. We're going to the next slide and we're timing this thing perfect. This is my heartbreak. This is my heartbreak for stock investors, because in 2000, and if they invested and retired after the greatest bull market in history, okay, and they only took out, and they had $1 million stock portfolio, and they only took out 5%, which is recommended, a 5% withdrawal rate, and
Okay.
increased that withdrawal rate for inflation to maintain your purchasing power, they would have gone broke in 14 and a half years. Here's the reality. My buddies that were in financial services, people were taking out 10% in the first couple of years, and their portfolio was just in a total nosedive. They couldn't recover. Okay. So, right. Well done. Well done. This is living on potential growth, and it's oh my gosh moments. What do I do? What do I do? And women live longer than men, so they're in a situation where they are in a world of hurt. So I took the actual returns of the stock market and I said, okay, 1900, you were given $1 million. In 1910, you were given $1 million. 1920, 1930, 1940, and so on. And I used a 5% withdrawal rate. I used the actual returns of the market. And this is what happened. Okay. You had 7 out of 11 periods where they went broke really around the 15th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th year in retirement. Now, These others, okay, were a gift because the one that goes up amazingly, the one that goes up like spikes up to the top and is the highest blue mark up there above the line. That was they were given $1 million in 1980, but between the 1970s and 1960s and 70s, the stock market was flat for
Again,
that period of time, so it wouldn't have worked out for them. Now, the green line, guess what the green line is? Real
real
estate
estate
investors
investors.
that just lived off the income from their investment. And back in most of these periods, the net rental income rate was a lot higher than 5 or 6% because they didn't have the taxes and the insurance and maintenance was cheaper. So they just simply had a quiet plan. They bought their real estate. They lived off the income from their investments at 4.5% inflation. This is where they ended up, and they were able to leave an estate.
And Jeff, should you put into the mix the fact that, that rental income, rental pricing could be growing because the demand seems so much greater for rentals right now because uh, people can't afford to buy, right? The interest rates went up so high and their income levels aren't rising as fast as they need to, and they're pulling back, so they're going toward rentals.
Well, it's funny you say that because back when I lived in Colorado in 2007, 8, 9, Colorado was one of the things that these people where they were doing no money down, kind
Yeah,
of let
remember
mortgages,
that
and they're
well.
they're creating tranches. These big freaking Lehman Brothers and all those other
Yes,
pirates were
remember it
creating these
well.
portfolios and doing all the different things. And what happened in Colorado, there was so many foreclosures and the values went down. Rental market went up.
Okay.
Okay, because nobody was buying
No
houses,
one was
nobody
buying.
they're foreclosing, and rental market went up. So even when the rental market and when the market's going down,
It's
and that's the
still,
thing that saves real estate investors
yeah.
because I have what's called know your local market, where I have some houses in Allentown, where my sort of area is, and then here in Collegeville, it's because I'm out of your market, where you look at these rents and people say, oh, these rents are so high. No, they only increased at about 4.5%. And people are saying, but when you're going, or say 5%, if you're going from $2,000 a month, 5% to another 2,100, and then 2,300, then 2,600, then it'll blow people away. I have another presentation that I did on the Academy for real about know your local market and going back to what rents were in Allentown, Pennsylvania since 1980, and it's so predictable, it's scary. So
Yes,
I'm
scary.
glad you brought that up
Yeah.
because the rents, that's what maintains purchasing power and lifestyle for people
Yes.
in retirement because the rents go up and their equity goes up.
Yes.
And then if they have to sell off, they're selling off on an asset and then they maintain and they still have a portfolio if they don't live too long. So I think that's a wrap. Q&A.
Yeah.
Here we go. So
So,
we're right on the timeline
yeah,
here,
you did. I
baby.
have to
We
give
hit
you
it
a
perfect.
10 because we're finishing up right at time. I'm going to jump to my other.
Yeah,
I
go to your
actually
ending.
have a different ending piece, and Samantha is running a little bit behind to put the two together. Here, we'll go back and share this one. But for those on the call, we talk about here, we'll share the closing remarks.
There we go.
I'm just jumping back to the different one. I'm very appreciative to have you as a guest today, Jeff, because I think your topic is so needed, but so underheard. So many people need to hear the message and they kind of don't. So for those on the call today, I'm super happy. But is there anything you want to share? What's the most important step for homeowners to take control of your flexibility in retirement? Is there any like one tip you want to leave people with today, like a closing remark?
I would not normally say this because, but I can with you after our conversations and
Okay.
knowing you and hearing about your legacy and the stuff with real and just you're a rock star. I'd have them call you and say,
Okay.
hey, here's my situation. Help me, because you also have a brain trust all around you
Yes.
that very few realtors have, and you're sort of my ideal person out there. Just hearing about you over the years, so. Um, my
Thank you.
answer would be have them talk to you about their situation
Thank
because
you.
you keep it confidential. Have them
I
talk to
would.
you and say, hey, Brett, this is my situation. I'm scared. Okay. Longevity runs in my wife's family. I'm looking at this. This is where we're at. What do you have to say? Because
What do you
there's a
recommend?
number of things that they can do. You have the resources there. Your list, from hearing about your list, is so comprehensive that on handyman or different things they can do, the age in place and different things. I think they should be calling you.
I appreciate that. So I'm going to
Yeah.
ask everyone on the call, stay connected to us because we have all kinds of events and things that we do for our audience, for our clients. You can share look to us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, follow us. And if there's anything else or you have any further questions, I want you to go to the website because we have this is our 22nd ABC of Senior Housing event webinar, and they're all recorded. They're out there. They're free. You can listen to them, send them to your friends, and we have all different topics. And again, this one will be available. And I'm going to say, Jeff, it usually takes our office about a week to 2 weeks to clean it up and do some editing and things, and then we'll send it out. Everyone who signed up that couldn't come. We'll send a copy of it to you, everyone on the call. If you want to forward it to a friend or family member, we'll do that as well. And I want to thank you, Jeff, for spending Saturday. It's a great Saturday day. You're also going to get a survey. Everyone on the call will send out electronically. You're going to get a survey. We'd like to know what other um, topics you'd like to hear from us, and we would love to stay in contact with you. So thank you.
Well, thank you. It was a privilege to be on here, and it was great to help you out with your cause because you were an amazing real estate broker. So
Thank
thank you
you.
very much.
That's another session today. Everyone enjoy your Saturday and hope to talk to you soon.